Welcome to the eerie world of haunted lighthouses. From ghostly sailors to vanished keepers, these iconic beacons of light hold dark secrets. Join us as we explore the top 10 most haunted lighthouses in Canada, where the spirits of the past refuse to fade into the mist. First, Pointe-à-la-Renommée Lighthouse, Quebec. Perched on a desolate cliffside overlooking the unforgiving waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the Pointe-à-la-Renommée Lighthouse is more than a historic landmark. It's a beacon of terror. Whispered tales speak of a keeper who vanished without a trace decades ago, leaving behind only his journal, filled with cryptic entries about shadowy figures watching him from the darkness. Visitors today report strange occurrences. Footsteps echo through the empty halls late at night, accompanied by an icy chill that clings to the air. Locals tell of a lantern that flickers on in the tower during stormy nights, though no one dares climb the steps. Even more unsettling are the distant cries that rise above the howling winds, pleas for help that fade as quickly as they appear. Some believe the keeper was driven mad by isolation, his spirit trapped forever in the lighthouse. Others speculate a darker force claimed him, feeding on his fear. One chilling account from a tourist described seeing a figure staring out from the top of the tower. When they mustered the courage to approach, the room was empty, save for the overwhelming scent of seawater and decay. The Pointe-à-la-Renommée Lighthouse stands as a reminder that some souls never find peace, their stories etched into the waves and whispered by the wind. Would you dare visit it alone? 2. Cape Spear Lighthouse, Newfoundland and Labrador. At the edge of the Atlantic, where jagged cliffs drop into a restless sea, stands Cape Spear Lighthouse, a sentinel against time, and perhaps something darker. Built in the early 19th century, this lighthouse has guided countless sailors, yet its history is stained with tragedy. Shipwrecks are common along this perilous coast, and it's said that not all the lost sailors have moved on. Local legends tell of ghostly figures wandering the fog-drenched cliffs at dusk, their faces obscured by the swirling mist. Visitors have claimed to hear faint, mournful cries carried on the salty wind, cries that seem to rise from the waves themselves. But the strangest tales come from within the lighthouse. Former keepers spoke of unseen hands tapping on windows during violent storms, as if someone, was trying to get in. Footsteps echo through the tower at odd hours, yet no one is there. One chilling account describes a visitor who saw a man in weathered oilskins staring out at the sea from the lantern room. When they approached, the figure vanished, leaving the air heavy with the scent of brine and something foul, something rotting. Some say these restless spirits are sailors who never reached shore, doomed to wander Cape Spear forever. Others believe the lighthouse itself holds their sorrow, amplifying it in the howling winds. Standing here surrounded by the vast, merciless ocean, one cannot help but feel watched. Alone or not, at Cape Spear, you are never truly alone. 3rd, West Point Lighthouse, Prince Edward Island. Amid the serene beauty of Prince Edward Island's shores stands West Point Lighthouse, a picturesque structure by day, but a harrowing one by night. Built in 1875, it now serves as an inn, welcoming guests to its historic halls. But those who stay often leave with more than just memories. They leave with stories of the unexplainable. Guests have reported strange occurrences, doors creaking open on their own, lights flickering despite no wind, and whispers echoing in empty rooms. The most unsettling tales, however, center on the spirit of a former keeper who died tragically on the job. He is said to roam the corridors, his heavy boots echoing on the wooden floors. One chilling encounter involved a guest who woke in the dead of night to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of their bed. The figure, dressed in an old uniform, seemed to stare for a moment before fading into nothingness. The guest described the air as growing suddenly cold, the faint scent of seawater lingering long after the apparition had vanished. Locals believe the keeper's spirit remains to protect the lighthouse, his eternal duty tying him to the place. Yet others wonder if he is simply trapped, unable to move on. Those who dare to stay the night will find the West Point Lighthouse offers more than stunning views. It offers a glimpse into the unknown. Would you sleep under its watchful gaze? Fourth, Atkinson Lighthouse, British Columbia. Shrouded by dense forests and perched above the rugged coastline near Vancouver, Atkinson Lighthouse is a place where nature and mystery intertwine. Built in 1875, it has guided countless mariners through treacherous waters. But beneath its utilitarian purpose lies a haunting legacy. Locals tell of a keeper who met a tragic end, swept away by a fierce storm while attempting to rescue a stranded ship. His body was never recovered, and some say his spirit returned to the lighthouse, forever tethered to the place he once called home. Hikers exploring the surrounding trails have reported glimpses of a man in outdated clothing standing near the edge of the cliffs. When approached, he disappears into the mist. Even more chilling are the accounts from visitors who hear soft tapping on the windows of the keeper's house during stormy nights. Some say it sounds like a plea to be let inside. One chilling tale tells of a woman who climbed the tower late one evening and felt an icy hand brush against her arm. She turned, but no one was there. Only the sound of faint, mournful breathing filling the lantern room. Point Atkinson is more than a historical landmark. It's a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels impossibly thin. Each gust of wind and every crashing wave seems to carry whispers of a tragic past. Would you dare to walk its grounds after dark? 5. Sambro Island Lighthouse, Nova Scotia. Standing defiantly against the harsh Atlantic winds, Sambro Island Lighthouse is the oldest working lighthouse in North America. For over 260 years, it has endured countless storms, shipwrecks, and tragedies. But what truly sets it apart is the sinister aura that lingers, as if the sea itself has claimed the souls of those lost and left them to haunt its shores. Fishermen and sailors speak of strange, ghostly lights circling the lighthouse on moonless nights, lights that seem to rise from the depths of the ocean. Others have heard cries of anguish echoing across the waves, only to find the waters calm and empty. Inside the tower, keepers have long whispered of eerie occurrences. Tools go missing only to reappear in places they'd already searched. Footsteps reverberate on the spiral staircase when no one is there. The most unsettling legend tells of a keeper who went mad from isolation and threw himself into the sea. His ghost, drenched and pale, is said to appear at the edge of the island, staring back at the lighthouse as if trapped in an endless loop of despair. Visitors brave enough to explore Sambro Island often leave unnerved, convinced they are not alone. The lighthouse stands as a beacon, not just for ships but for something darker, something that refuses to let go of the past. Would you venture to this haunted isle, knowing the spirits of the lost may be waiting? 6th Street, Paul Island Lighthouse, Nova Scotia. Known ominously as the graveyard of the Gulf, St. Paul Island is a desolate place shrouded in fog and tragedy. Its lighthouse, a lonely sentinel on the barren rock, has witnessed centuries of shipwrecks, claiming the lives of countless sailors. But some say those who perished here never truly left. Keepers have long told stories of phantom ships appearing in the mist, their sails full despite the still air, only to vanish without a trace. The lighthouse itself is said to harbor restless spirits. At night, the sound of heavy boots pacing the tower echoes through the halls, even when no one is there. One of the most chilling tales is of a shipwreck survivor who was brought to the island during a storm. He spoke of hearing cries in the wind and seeing ghostly figures on the cliffs, beckoning him back to the sea. The next morning, his body was found near the shoreline, his face frozen in terror. Visitors report an overwhelming sense of unease, as if unseen eyes are always watching. Some have even heard disembodied voices murmuring in the fog, voices speaking in long-forgotten tongues. St. Paul Island Lighthouse is a place where the past feels startlingly alive, its ghosts waiting patiently for the next unwary soul to join them. Would you dare step foot on this cursed isle, 7. Fort Amherst Lighthouse, Newfoundland. Overlooking the unforgiving Atlantic waters, Fort Amherst Lighthouse stands near the ruins of an old military fort, a place steeped in history and whispered legends of restless spirits. This lighthouse has guided sailors for decades, but those who approach it after dark often leave with chilling tales of the unexplained. Locals speak of ghostly soldiers from the long-abandoned fort, still guarding their posts in the afterlife. Shadows move along the cliffs where no living being could walk, and faint echoes of marching boots rise above the crashing waves. Keepers of the lighthouse have reported hearing anguished cries carried on the wind, though no source can ever be found. One story tells of a young keeper's child who vanished without a trace one foggy evening. Ever since, visitors claim to hear the faint laughter of a child drifting through the mist, accompanied by the sound of small, hurried footsteps near the tower. When investigated, the lighthouse stands silent, as if the sounds were never there. Even more unsettling is the figure of a woman in tattered clothes who has been spotted staring out to sea. Witnesses say she appears during storms, her face twisted in sorrow, before disappearing with the lightning's flash. Fort Amherst Lighthouse is a place where the past refuses to fade and where tragedy lingers in the salty air. The question remains, are the spirits bound by duty or by something far darker? Would you dare to seek the answers in the shadow of its light? 8. Gibralter Point Lighthouse, Ontario. On the windswept shores of Toronto Island stands Gibralter Point Lighthouse, a stone tower with a dark and bloody past. Built in 1808, it is the oldest lighthouse on the Great Lakes, and perhaps the most haunted. Its grim history began with the mysterious death of its first keeper, J.P. Radlmiller, in 1815. Legend says he was murdered by soldiers for his homemade beer, his body dismembered and buried somewhere near the lighthouse. To this day, Radlmiller's restless spirit is said to haunt the grounds. Visitors have reported faint moans rising from the earth and shadowy figures moving in the corners of their vision. The scent of freshly dug earth sometimes lingers in the air, even though no soil has been disturbed. One of the most chilling stories comes from a group of explorers who climbed the tower late at night. As they reached the top, they heard footsteps climbing behind them, slow and deliberate. When they turned, no one was there, but the heavy footsteps continued past them, ascending into the lantern room above. Even in daylight, the lighthouse has a menacing aura. Its weathered stones seem to hold the weight of its tragic history, and those who visit often speak of a sense of dread that clings to them long after they leave. Gibralter Point Lighthouse is not just a relic of the past. It's a monument to a mystery that refuses to rest. Would you dare to stand where the keeper met his untimely end? 9. Fysgard Lighthouse, British Columbia. Standing guard near the entrance of Esquimalt Harbor, Fysgard Lighthouse is a stunning landmark by day, but by night, it transforms into a place of whispered fear. Built in 1860, it has withstood storms, shipwrecks, and isolation. Yet its walls seem to hold more than just history. They hold the lingering presence of something unearthly. Locals tell of a woman in a flowing white dress who appears during heavy storms. Her ghostly figure has been spotted walking the shoreline, her face hidden by her long, dripping hair. Some say she's the grieving wife of a sailor lost to the sea, eternally searching for him. Others believe she was a keeper's wife who fell victim to the crushing loneliness of life on the island. Visitors have shared unsettling experiences, faint cries echoing from the lantern room, icy drafts sweeping through the keeper's quarters even on warm nights, and the inexplicable sound of tapping on the tower's windows during fierce gales. One account tells of a couple who stayed after sunset, only to see the light in the tower flicker and extinguish, leaving them in darkness as the sound of soft weeping surrounded them. The Fysgard Lighthouse remains operational, its beam cutting through the night. Yet those who venture close are left wondering if it shines for the living or for the spirits still trapped in its shadow. Would you dare approach knowing the woman in white may be watching? 10th, Seal Island Lighthouse, Nova Scotia. Rising from the fog and salt-sprayed cliffs of Nova Scotia, Seal Island Lighthouse has become a grim symbol of the treacherous waters surrounding it. The lighthouse, perched on a remote island, is a place where the living and the dead seem to blur, as if the spirits of the drowned have never truly left. The island's name alone tells a haunting tale. Seal Island, named for the countless shipwrecks that have claimed sailors over the centuries. As the wrecks grew in number, so did the ghost stories. Locals speak of phantom lights that dance across the darkened horizon at night, far out of reach, luring ships to their doom. Keepers stationed on the island have reported hearing strange sounds, urgent knocks at the door when no one is there, the unmistakable sound of footsteps pacing through the tower when the lighthouse is empty, and voices calling out in the dead of night. One tale recounts a keeper who saw a shadowy figure standing by the cliffs, only to watch it vanish into the mist as he approached. Perhaps the most chilling story is of a visitor who found himself alone on the island during a storm. As he walked the rocky shores, he heard the distinct sound of chains dragging across the ground behind him. When he turned, no one was there, but the eerie sound continued, following him relentlessly until he fled back to the lighthouse. Seal Island Lighthouse is not just a warning to ships. It is a tomb, a place where the dead are never truly gone. Would you dare to explore its haunted shores, knowing the spirits of the lost might still be waiting for their next victim? These lighthouses stand as chilling reminders of lost souls and tragic history. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, one thing is certain: these haunted places will leave you with an eerie feeling long after you leave. Would you dare to visit them? Let us know in the comments.